Everything you are praying for, everything you are fasting for, everything you've been silently hoping will happen in your life, it doesn't begin with miracles falling out of the sky. It begins with a decision to step into what was always prepared for you. Destiny is not magic. It is the manifestation of deliberate, intentional alignment. You don't wake up and accidentally become great. You choose greatness one obedient step at a time. And that first step, that decision, is the only bridge between your current life and the one you were born to live. Until you decide, nothing moves. Until you decide, the heavens wait. The angels remain idle, the resources remain locked, and the future remains silent. It is not because you are not called. It is not because you are not gifted. It is not because God does not want to bless you. It is because your hesitation has halted your elevation. The kingdom doesn't respond to emotion. It responds to decision. And the moment you decide, everything begins to shift. Doors you couldn't see begin to open. People you didn't know begin to find you. Resources that were hidden begin to emerge. Why? Because the environment is always waiting for the king to make a decree. Some people think that destiny is an accident. They look at the successful, the fulfilled, the ones operating in their calling, and they think they were lucky. No, they were decisive. The power of a made-up mind is greater than the potential of an undecided heart. Until you decide, you are double-minded. And a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. You're praying for stability, but God is waiting for a decision. You're asking for direction. But the GPS can't recalculate a route if you've never moved. You're asking God to bless your plans, but you haven't even written them down yet. Your success isn't waiting on another prophecy. It's waiting on your next step, that next phone call, that next conversation, that next discipline, that next yes. You must understand this. Your decision is your permission. God gave you the power of will because He refuses to force you into greatness. He will inspire you. He will send mentors, messages, moments. But He will never make the choice for you. Why? Because heaven only partners with those who own their responsibility. And until you own the responsibility of your next step, you will remain a prisoner to your past hesitation. Think about this. One decision turned a shepherd boy into a king. One step of obedience brought a nation out of slavery. One act of boldness split an entire sea in two. What could your one decision unlock? What harvest is hidden behind your fear? What miracle is waiting on your movement? You're not stuck because God hasn't spoken. You're stuck because you haven't moved. Destiny does not chase the fearful. It waits for the bold. There's nothing more tragic than someone who lives and dies full of potential but empty of fulfillment. And the only thing that stands between potential and fulfillment is a decision. A decision to break that habit. A decision to write that book. A decision to leave that toxic relationship. A decision to show up when no one claps for you. A decision to believe in your calling even when you don't feel qualified. That's what separates the impactful from the invisible. They made a decision and they stuck with it. No turning back. No waiting for perfect timing. No needing the approval of others. They saw the future and said, I'll walk by faith, not by sight. So let me say this to you with urgency. Your next season is not waiting for more information. It's waiting for your decision. God will not move until you do. The windows of heaven will remain closed until the window of your mind opens. You are not too late. You have not missed it. But you are one step away. Just one. And the question is not, will it work? The question is, will you move? Because if you move, it will work. If you step, the provision will meet you. If you obey, the favor will find you. You're just one decision away from everything you've ever wanted. The house, the peace, the legacy, the impact, the healing, the clarity, it's already prepared. But heaven is waiting on your yes. A full, complete, unapologetic, non-negotiable yes. That is the beginning of everything. Everything you have ever desired, everything you have secretly longed for, everything you were born to achieve is waiting on the other side of a decision. Nothing in life changes until something moves, and nothing moves until a decision is made. The power of decision is the birthplace of transformation. It's not enough to dream, not enough to wish, not enough to hope, not enough to pray if there is no decision that shifts your posture from waiting to walking. Many people are sitting at the edge of destiny, right at the border of breakthrough, but because they will not decide, they remain locked in a cycle of almost and not yet. You can be anointed and unproductive if you are indecisive. You can be gifted and broke, talented and ignored, called and confused, not because the promise isn't true, but because the decision hasn't been made. The future does not belong to the most talented. It belongs to the most decisive. Talent without decision is wasted. Potential without action is poverty. Your next level is not waiting for more time. It is waiting for a shift in your will. Heaven is not withholding anything from you. What God has stored for you has already been created, already been scheduled, already been assigned. The blueprint of your future is complete. But like a locked vault, it can only be opened by a decisive step that says, I'm ready. Most people are waiting on God to move, but God is waiting on you to choose. That's why destiny is not a destination. It is a decision. A decision will disturb your comfort. A decision will threaten your routine. A decision will call you out of familiarity into the unknown. That's why many avoid it. They want change, but they won't choose it. They want the reward without the risk, the promise without the process, the crown without the cross. But that's not how greatness is born. Greatness comes at the price of resolve. When you decide, you shut the door to alternatives. You silence the voices of doubt. You burn the bridge to who you used to be and step fully into who you were created to become. That is the essence of power. The moment you make a quality decision, your inner world aligns with your divine assignment. There is something sacred about decision. It activates things in the realm of the spirit. It sends signals into your environment. The universe begins to organize itself around your intention. When you make a real decision, not just a wish but a firm, irrevocable choice, you send a vibration into the spiritual atmosphere that attracts divine response. Angels are released, resources are redirected, doors begin to unlock. Why? Because heaven recognizes commitment. You may think nothing changed, but in the spirit everything shifted. Your yes is louder than your prayers. Your obedience speaks more than your worship. When God sees your action, He authorizes your access. Too many people stay stuck in cycles because they live in the land of maybe. They are trapped between two opinions, always wondering, always wavering, always waiting for a perfect moment. But perfection is a myth and hesitation is a thief. Life will pass you by while you're still trying to decide. Opportunity doesn't wait for comfort. It moves with purpose. When it comes, you must be ready to leap, not calculate. You will never have all the information. You will never feel fully prepared. The timing will never be perfect. That is why decision is the gatekeeper of destiny. It doesn't wait for certainty, it acts on conviction. Every major shift in your life will trace back to one decision. Think about it. One decision to walk away, one decision to begin again. One decision to say yes when everything in you said no. One decision to trust when you had every reason to fear. These are the moments that define us, not by our feelings, not by our circumstances, but by our choices. Your future is not built in a day. It is built daily by the decisions you make. And the most powerful decision you can ever make is the decision to become who you really are. Not who they told you to be. Not who your past says you are. But who you were created to be from the beginning. There is power in one decision. One decision can cancel years of delay. One decision can recover everything you lost. One decision can close the gap between your pain and your promise. But here's the truth. No one can make that decision for you. Not your pastor. Not your spouse. Not your mentor. Not even God. Because decision is an act of will, and your will is sacred. That is why it's the most powerful gift you've been given. What you decide to do with that gift determines whether you live in alignment with your destiny or remain stuck in your history. God will never force you into greatness. He will call you. He will equip you. He will confirm you. But He will never control you. That's your part. You must decide. That is why some people with less talent go further. That is why people with fewer connections end up on stages others only dream about. Because they made a decision and refused to back down. The difference is not ability. The difference is resolve. When you make a decision and refuse to turn back, life begins to bend in your direction. People who never noticed you begin to recognize you. Opportunities that once ignored you begin to knock. Resources you didn't qualify for begin to show up. All because you moved from passivity to pursuit. This is the reason you cannot afford to delay anymore. You're not waiting on confirmation. You're not waiting on resources. You're not waiting on a new season. You're waiting on a decision. And every day you delay, you pay. Not just in time, but in impact. Because while you hesitate, someone else is hurting. While you delay, someone else is drowning. Your decision to rise isn't just about you. It's about the people connected to your obedience. There are doors that only open for you. There are lives that only you can touch. There are assignments that only you were born to fulfill. But none of it happens until you decide. The power is not in the prophecy. It's in your response to it. You can receive all the affirmations, all the encouragement, all the inspiration in the world. But until you choose to act, it remains dormant. Potential is a good beginning, but without a decision, it becomes your prison. You'll always be almost ready, almost finished, almost successful, almost obedient. But almost doesn't create legacy. Almost doesn't fulfill destiny. Almost never changes the world. You are one step away from everything you've ever wanted. And that step begins with a decision. Not a loud one, not a dramatic one, just a clear, unwavering, internal resolve that says, no more waiting, no more fear, no more excuses. I've decided. I will become, I will move, I will rise. Because in the kingdom of purpose, nothing moves until you do. The vision that's been placed inside of you is not a fantasy. It is a glimpse of your future, a preview of coming attractions that heaven deposited into your spirit. But what many people fail to realize is that vision does not come alive all at once. It is not handed to you fully formed. It is revealed piece by piece, step by step. And the next part of that vision will never appear while you stand still, waiting for guarantees. The unfolding of the future happens only through motion. You have to move to see. You have to step to receive. You have to obey before understanding. The next step always unlocks the next view. Most people want full clarity before they commit. They want every detail, every confirmation, every outcome revealed in advance. But that is not how vision works. Vision is not the final picture. It's the invitation to begin. What you have seen so far is only a fragment of the full masterpiece. It is not your job to see it all. It is your responsibility to trust what you've been given and start walking toward it. Your obedience to the current instruction determines whether or not you receive the next one. The next level of understanding is reserved for those who walk by faith, not by sight. If you are waiting for everything to make sense before you move, you will never move. The path to your future is not visible from the beginning. It is hidden for your protection. God never reveals everything in advance, because if you saw all that was required, you might retreat. If you saw all the opposition, you might say no. If you saw all the sacrifice, you might delay. So he gives it to you one portion at a time, trusting that as you move forward, your maturity will grow, your confidence will rise, and your ability to handle what's ahead will be developed. The path becomes clearer with every act of obedience. And every step you take in faith pulls the curtain back a little more. You cannot unlock doors from a distance. You must approach them. You cannot receive strategies from a place of stillness. You must engage. Your motion is proof of your trust. When you move without knowing, heaven sees your faith. And faith always attracts divine instruction. The moment you step, answers begin to arrive. Provision begins to manifest. Direction begins to flow. Why? Because the vision is alive and it responds to movement. The dream is not dead, it's dormant, waiting for your next step. So many people stay stuck at the border of their next season because they refuse to move until they feel something. They want motivation before they move, inspiration before they act. But greatness doesn't begin with feelings, it begins with discipline. And discipline is born when you understand that movement births clarity. As long as you stand still, everything remains blurry. The way becomes clearer with every act of progress. It's like a lamp unto your feet, not a floodlight across the field. You get just enough light for the next step, not the whole path. That is the nature of divine guidance. It is progressive. The reason why most people quit is because they want revelation without relationship. They want results without response. They want certainty without cost. But real vision only responds to those who are willing to walk blind until they see. You don't need to know every answer. You just need to trust the voice that gave you the first instruction. The one who gave you the glimpse will guide you through the fog. And every time you obey, the vision expands. You begin to see what you could not see from where you were standing. The mountain only looks unmovable when you're far from it. But when you walk toward it, you realize the path was always there. You just couldn't see it until you moved. The vision you carry is too sacred to be fully exposed in the beginning. It is hidden not to confuse you, but to develop you. If you could see everything now, you might attempt to bypass the process. You might try to skip preparation. But the process is what builds you for the promise. Every step prepares your character, your discernment, your patience, and your endurance. That is why God reveals the what before the how. He shows you the destination but withholds the details. Because the details are designed to be discovered through motion. Revelation is progressive. You don't get the second step until you obey the first. Some people keep going in circles because they become addicted to understanding. But vision does not require understanding. It requires submission. When God gave you that dream, He wasn't asking for your analysis. He was inviting your alignment. The next door won't open until you walk toward it. You may feel like you don't have all the tools, all the support, or all the knowledge, but what you have is enough for the next move. Stop waiting for perfection. Progress is made in steps, not leaps, and each step you take builds momentum. Momentum is spiritual. Motion creates energy. When you move, you start attracting people, places, and resources that were assigned to meet you on the path. You don't meet them while standing still. You meet them while walking. What you need is not on this side of obedience. It's on the other side. And the reason you feel frustrated, stuck, or unclear is because the instruction to move has not been answered. You've been praying for clarity, but clarity is not given in the waiting room. It's given on the battlefield of obedience. Every builder knows that you don't get the entire plan all at once. You lay one brick at a time. The same is true in life. The next phase of the blueprint is only revealed when you've built faithfully with what you were already given. Many are praying for the next season while neglecting the current instruction. And because they haven't moved, nothing has changed. But the moment you start moving, the next piece of the puzzle begins to drop into place. Vision is not a painting, it's a path. It is a series of steps disguised as mystery. Each step reveals the next color, the next shape, the next detail. But you must walk, you must act, you must commit. And sometimes the step looks small, even insignificant. But in the spirit, every small step of obedience creates a large ripple. One phone call, one new habit, one prayer, one conversation, one uncomfortable action. These are not minor events. They are movements in the divine orchestration of your destiny. You were never meant to have all the answers. You were meant to walk by faith. That's why it's called a walk and not a leap, because it's steady, it's progressive, and it's consistent. You are not judged by how much you know, but by how far you're willing to walk with what you already know. That's where the reward is. Not in information, but in movement. Vision expands in motion. The dream becomes real when you commit to doing the next right thing. Everything is waiting for your step, not your perfection, not your plan, just your movement. The clarity will come. The vision will speak. But it speaks to those who walk. Faith is the invisible currency that gives you access to the unseen realities prepared for your life. Everything that has been promised to you, everything you've been praying about, everything that has been revealed to you in dreams or whispered into your heart in moments of silence, it all already exists. It has been spoken, established, and settled in the heavenly realm. But it will not appear in your natural life just because you hope for it. It will not manifest just because you want it desperately. The delivery system of heaven requires faith, not emotional pleading, not intellectual agreement, not religious activity, but living, active, bold faith. Faith is the key that opens the vault. It is the substance that connects the invisible promise to the visible experience. Without it, you can desire all you want, but you will live outside of what belongs to you. Faith is not simply belief in the existence of God. It is the alignment of your internal conviction with divine reality. It is trusting the voice of God above the noise of your circumstances. It is stepping forward even when the environment looks contradictory to what was promised. That's why faith is called substance, because it is the internal proof of external manifestation. When you operate in faith, you don't wait for things to look right. You act as if they are already right. Faith sees through walls. Faith walks through storms. Faith believes when there's no reason left to believe, because faith does not anchor itself in what is seen. It anchors itself in what is spoken. There are things waiting to be released into your life that are locked behind the door of unbelief. God is not withholding them from you because you're not good enough or because the timing is wrong. He is waiting for the legal access point, and that legal access is faith. Faith is a spiritual agreement. It says, I trust the integrity of what God said more than I trust the evidence in front of me. Until you come into that agreement, you cannot take delivery of the promise. You can cry, you can fast, you can declare. But if you do not believe to the point of action, nothing shifts. Faith is not passive. Faith does not sit and wish. Faith takes steps. Faith moves even when the wind is blowing. Faith builds even when there are no blueprints. Faith plants even when there's no rain. Faith expects results even when there's no sign. Your faith must be stronger than your feelings. Your emotions will fluctuate. You'll feel inspired one day and discouraged the next. You'll feel brave this morning and terrified by nightfall. That's normal. But faith is not based on feeling. It is based on principle. Faith doesn't need a good mood. It just needs a made-up mind, a mind that has decided, I will believe no matter what I see. That kind of faith is not loud. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it's quiet and still, but it is unshakable. It refuses to quit. It refuses to doubt. It refuses to back down. And it is that kind of faith that causes heaven to respond. Faith is not about pretending that challenges don't exist. It is about believing that the challenge is not greater than the promise. When the facts say there's no way, faith declares there is a way. When the doctor gives a diagnosis, faith still sees healing. When the bank account says zero, faith sees provision. Faith doesn't deny the facts, it defies them. It puts a demand on heaven and says, your word is more real than my reality, and heaven honors that. Because faith is not manipulation. It is spiritual law. When you operate in faith, you are not begging God, you are working with God. You are activating His promises by believing in their power. Most people are waiting for God to move, but in truth, God is waiting for them to believe. Not just intellectually, but wholeheartedly. Faith is not knowing that God can. It is living like He already has. It is speaking what He said before you see what He said. It is walking into rooms like the opportunity is already yours. It is preparing for the outcome before the outcome has arrived. Faith always acts like it's done, because in the realm of the Spirit it is. You are not trying to make something happen. You are receiving what already exists, and the way you receive is by believing. The most powerful men and women in history were not always the most educated, the most connected, or the most eloquent. They were simply the ones who believed. Belief moved them when fear could have stopped them. Belief carried them when doubt could have destroyed them. Faith is not just a church word. It is a life force. It is what allows you to transcend the limits of this world. Without it, you are stuck living by logic, and logic can only take you as far as your eyes can see. But faith lets you reach beyond the natural. It lets you tap into a supernatural flow of resources, ideas, strategies, and opportunities that do not exist until you step into them. You must understand this. Faith creates space for miracles. It builds an environment where the impossible becomes possible. When you believe, you shift the atmosphere. You become a magnet for the movement of God. You align your life with divine timing. You walk in rhythm with heaven's agenda. And you become unstoppable, not because of your strength, but because of your agreement. When your mind agrees with God, your life begins to look like heaven. Faith brings things from the unseen to the seen. It takes what is spiritual and makes it practical. It makes the promise a possession. You cannot afford to live another day without activating your faith. You have dreams you haven't seen because you haven't believed. You have doors that haven't opened because you haven't stepped. You have potential that hasn't awakened because you haven't trusted. Your future is not waiting on money, approval, or the right conditions. It's waiting on faith. And faith starts with one decision: I choose to believe, even when it's hard, even when it's unclear, even when it feels foolish. Because every great breakthrough begins with that one decision. Faith is heaven's language. It is how you talk to the realm of the unseen. It is how you interact with destiny. And just like money gives you access in the physical world, faith gives you access in the spiritual world. It is the currency that purchases fulfillment. If you want the fullness of your calling, you must invest in it, not hesitation. Not delay, but raw, fearless, unshakable faith. Faith that walks through fire. Faith that speaks to mountains. Faith that sees rain in a drought. Faith that keeps building when everyone else walks away. Faith that doesn't quit at resistance. Faith that doesn't need applause. Faith that doesn't need explanation. Faith that is fully persuaded even when surrounded by contradiction. The kind of faith that changes your life is not generic. It is specific. It is targeted. It is bold enough to look ridiculous. It is detailed enough to move with precision. It is strong enough to survive silence. And it is humble enough to trust God's timing. That faith is available to you. It's not reserved for the elite. It's not locked away in a spiritual vault. It is inside of you, waiting to be activated. Every time you choose to believe, you invest in your future. Every time you act in faith, you give permission for heaven to invade your life. Everything you want, everything you've prayed for, everything you were born to walk in. Faith is the currency that pays for it. Delays are some of the most misunderstood seasons in a person's life. When things don't happen on your timeline, when doors don't open as fast as you expected, when opportunities seem to pass you by, it is easy to assume that something has gone wrong. It's tempting to believe that God has forgotten you, that your prayers are being ignored, or that your destiny is on pause. But the truth is far more powerful. Delays are not denials. They are often divine strategies in disguise. What you call a delay might be a door, a hidden access point to a greater level of maturity, refinement, clarity, or strength that you didn't even know you needed. What you think is punishment may actually be preparation. What you assume is rejection may really be redirection. Life has a way of making you question timing, but divine timing is always perfect. When heaven appears to be silent, it is not inactive. Something is always being arranged behind the scenes. Delays are simply the moments when the invisible hand of providence is rearranging things to align with the greatness you're called to walk in. When a delay occurs, it doesn't always mean that the thing you want is not ready. Sometimes it means you are not ready. There are seasons where what you've prayed for is already waiting, but you are being developed to carry it. To receive prematurely what you are not mature to manage is not a blessing, it's a burden. Many people want the promise without being processed. They want the influence without the inner integrity. They want the platform without the discipline. But destiny is not just about what you're gifted to do. It's about what you're prepared to steward. And delays often reveal where development is still required. There's a reason certain doors don't open immediately. It's not to frustrate you, it's to form you. It's to stretch your faith, deepen your resolve, and refine your character. Every delay has a lesson in it if you refuse to become bitter. People tend to panic when delays set in. They question everything. Did I miss God? Was that vision even real? Maybe I should have chosen a different path. But just because things don't happen quickly doesn't mean they won't happen. There's a difference between stillness and stagnation. Stillness is strategic. Stagnation is the result of fear. If God has placed you in a still season, it's because He's preparing something that requires a pause. You don't rush the oven when you're baking a cake. If you pull it out too early, it collapses. The same is true for purpose. There is a baking process. There is a season where things are rising, even though you cannot see it. The surface may look the same, but beneath it, everything is changing. Growth in delay is often invisible. But just because you can't see it doesn't mean it isn't happening. Delays are not voids. They are not lifeless. They are full of movement that your eyes can't perceive yet. They carry weight, meaning, and depth. They hold answers to prayers you didn't know you needed to pray. And most importantly, they filter your motivation. When you're delayed, your intentions are exposed. Are you chasing the promise or the promiser? Are you hungry for destiny or desperate for validation? Delays will strip away the illusion of ambition and reveal the condition of your heart. They refine your why. They force you to confront your identity outside of results. They test whether you're building because of obedience or because of applause. Many people abort their assignments during delays because they equate movement with progress. But sometimes the most significant progress happens when you're standing still. That's where perspective is shaped. That's where vision is recalibrated. That's where your foundation is reinforced. And only those who endure the silence without surrendering the call will see the fullness of what was promised. It is easy to believe when doors are flying open. It is easy to trust when money is flowing. But what about when nothing is happening? What about when you sowed the seed, declared the word, obeyed the instruction, and yet the result still hasn't arrived? That is where real faith is born. Faith is not proven in motion, it is proven in the wait. What you do when it seems like nothing is happening determines what you're trusted with when everything starts happening. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in life are disguised as delays. When Joseph was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and locked in prison, it looked like his dream was over. But every delay was a door. Every setback was a setup. Had he skipped the prison, he never would have reached the palace. Had he rushed the process, he wouldn't have had the character to sustain his promotion. And the same is true for you. What feels like detour is often destiny in disguise. What feels like a wall is really a hallway to something greater. If you would pause and lean in instead of complaining, you'd begin to see what God is really doing. In delay, discernment is crucial. You have to silence the noise and listen. Listen to the whispers. Listen to the instructions. Listen to what's being developed in you. The delay is not passive. It's pregnant with purpose. But only those who remain attentive in the pause will extract the wisdom it offers. You must train your heart to see the beauty in the waiting. There is something sacred in the stretch. That sacred stretch grows your spiritual capacity. It enlarges your understanding. It teaches you how to handle disappointment without forfeiting expectation. It forces you to anchor your identity in what God said, not in what life is showing. You must never confuse inactivity with irrelevance. Your delay does not mean you are forgotten. It means the stage is being set. It means the connections are being aligned. It means the door being prepared is bigger than the one you were originally knocking on. Sometimes God delays a good thing to give you a greater thing. But you won't know that unless you stay long enough to see it unfold. If you walk away too soon, you'll settle for what was quick instead of what was promised. Patience is not weakness. It is strength under control. It is the posture of those who are confident in what they carry, even when no one else sees it yet. Delays are not the end. They are the edge of acceleration. Often the longest waits are followed by the fastest moves. There's a divine pattern hidden in the process: delay, test, trust, release. And if you can pass the test of the delay, the release will be greater than anything you imagined. But you cannot cheat this part. There are no shortcuts. Destiny does not bend to impatience. It rewards those who remain faithful without applause. Those who keep preparing even when there's no invitation. Those who stay in position even when nothing is moving. So when you find yourself in a delay, don't shut down. Don't doubt the call. Don't assume it's over. Pause. Reflect. Lean in. Ask what is being formed in you. Ask what is being protected for you. The delay is a disguise, and only those with discernment will recognize the door hidden inside it. You don't need more signs. You need more stillness. You don't need a new word. You need to steward the one you've already been given. Because what looks like a delay from your point of view may actually be the door to everything you've been praying for. There is a sacred power in obedience that most people overlook. Not the kind of obedience that comes from religious obligation, but the obedience that flows from trust, deep personal trust in the voice that speaks within. That small inner prompting, that quiet nudge in your spirit, that unexplainable impression that won't leave you alone, it is not a coincidence. It is not your imagination. It is not a fleeting thought to be dismissed. It is the voice of alignment. It is the whisper of divine instruction. And the moment you choose to obey it, something supernatural begins to happen in your life. That's the moment when the unseen realm starts moving on your behalf. That's when doors that were closed for years suddenly open. That's when people begin to show up, opportunities begin to align, and resources begin to flow. Not because of effort, not because of strategy, but because of obedience. Obedience unlocks what striving can never produce. It brings you into harmony with the order of the kingdom. When you obey the inner voice, you come into agreement with divine timing. You stop forcing, you stop chasing. You stop manipulating outcomes. Instead, you begin to flow. Life begins to move around you instead of you trying to push through it. The world begins to respond to your alignment. Because in obedience, you're not operating in your own strength. You're operating under a divine directive. And when heaven initiates a command, heaven also provides the power to fulfill it. That's why things feel lighter when you're walking in obedience. That's why burdens lift, anxiety fades, and clarity returns. Obedience doesn't always make sense, but it always makes miracles. The reason many people feel stuck is because they are waiting for the big moment, the loud instruction, the dramatic sign. But the supernatural is often activated through something small, a phone call you're prompted to make, a person you feel led to forgive, a habit you're nudged to stop, a place you feel drawn to go. And when you ignore those small nudges, you delay the big breakthroughs. Because in the kingdom, little keys open big doors. The prompting may seem insignificant, but your response to it is what determines access. Every time you obey the quiet voice inside, you signal to heaven that you are ready for more. And when you ignore it, you communicate that you cannot be trusted with the next level. Obedience is not always convenient. It often requires interruption. It challenges your schedule, your comfort, your logic. But what it unlocks is always greater than what it interrupts. Some of the greatest shifts in your life will come from simple acts of obedience. Not because they make sense, but because they come from a higher place. Obedience teaches you to move with conviction instead of comfort. It matures your faith because it forces you to trust something deeper than what you see. And the more you obey, the more sensitive you become. The more responsive you are, the more you recognize that voice. Obedience sharpens your discernment. It trains your spirit to know when the wind is shifting. There are blessings that cannot be prayed into your life. They must be obeyed into your life. You can cry for it, fast for it, declare it, and still not see it until you respond to the instruction. Because the instruction is the pathway to the manifestation. You are not waiting on God to release it. God is waiting on you to respond to what He already said. And often, what He said is not new. It's something He told you a long time ago. You just haven't acted on it. That idea you keep pushing aside, that step you keep avoiding, that decision you keep postponing, those are not random delays. They are missed activations. Every instruction carries the seed of a miracle, but it will never manifest until it is obeyed. Obedience will never ask you to be perfect. It just asks you to be responsive. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to know how it's going to unfold. You just need to take the next step. And often, that step won't make logical sense. But obedience is not about logic. It's about trust. It's about recognizing that the voice that gave you the instruction also knows the outcome. You don't need to see the full picture. You just need to trust the painter. He is not asking for your understanding. He is asking for your surrender. He is not demanding your perfection. He is inviting your participation. Many people think they need more faith, but what they really need is more obedience. Faith without obedience is dead. You can believe all day long, but if you don't act on what you believe, nothing changes. Belief becomes powerful only when it becomes behavior. It's not about how loud you pray. It's about how consistently you follow. The breakthrough is not in the emotion. It's in the execution. You don't need another confirmation. You need to do what you already know to do. The power is in the response. There's a reason some people accelerate faster than others. It's not because they're better. It's because they respond faster. They don't wait to be convinced. They don't need to be persuaded. They hear the instruction and they move. That responsiveness creates rhythm. That rhythm creates flow. And that flow brings favor. Obedience puts you in the right place at the right time with the right people. It's not random. It's alignment. And when you are aligned, you don't have to chase. What's yours begins to find you. Obedience will test your ego. It will humble your pride. It will challenge your independence. Because it forces you to admit that you are not in control. It requires surrender. It demands trust, but it also produces peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you are exactly where you are meant to be. Obedience may cost you your comfort, but it gives you your calling. It may disrupt your plans, but it unlocks your purpose. You don't always see the reward immediately. But something shifts in the spirit the moment you say yes. Obedience is what separates potential from power. Many people are filled with potential, but they never become who they were created to be because they resist obedience. They want the outcome without the instruction. They want the results without the responsibility. But the kingdom doesn't work that way. It operates by principles. And obedience is one of the highest laws. When you obey, you authorize heaven to move. You release divine momentum. You trigger spiritual favor. Because obedience is not just about you. It's about everything connected to you. Your yes doesn't just bless you. It blesses your family. It blesses your legacy. It blesses the people you haven't even met yet. You don't have to figure it all out today. You don't have to plan every step. You just need to respond to the last instruction. What did you hear? What were you prompted to do? What step did you avoid because it seemed too small, too risky, too uncertain? That's where your breakthrough is hiding. It's in the small place. It's in the quiet place. It's in the step that doesn't make sense to your mind but resonates with your spirit. And the moment you take that step, the atmosphere will begin to shift. Not because you forced it, but because you obeyed. Everything changes the moment you truly believe it has. Not when the evidence shows up, not when the results appear, not when others finally acknowledge it, but the moment you decide within yourself that it's already done. The shift doesn't start in the outer world, it begins in the unseen. It begins in your consciousness, in that private place where thoughts form and reality takes root. The truth is, the world around you is a reflection of the world within you. What you call reality is nothing more than a mirror of your dominant inner state. When you believe something deeply and consistently, your world has no choice but to conform to that belief. You don't see it because it exists. You see it because you believe. That's the law. Belief is not mental agreement. It's not positive thinking. It's not wishful hoping. Belief is possession. When you believe something is already yours, you stop reaching for it. You stop needing proof. You stop doubting the process. You carry yourself differently. You think from the place of having, not from the place of wanting. You walk with the authority of someone who has already received, not someone who is trying to convince themselves they will. And that subtle difference between thinking of it and thinking from it is the line that separates those who manifest their desires from those who merely wish and wait. As long as you are trying to get it, you are confirming to yourself that you don't yet have it. But when you move into the energy of what is done, you collapse time, and the manifestation begins to accelerate. Your outer life bends to your inner assumptions. If you assume you are stuck, nothing around you will shift. If you assume money is hard to come by, your circumstances will reinforce that belief. If you assume your dream is distant, it will always feel out of reach. But the moment you assume it is already yours, even without physical evidence, your perception changes, your language changes, your decisions change, and those changes create a chain reaction in your environment. The world doesn't respond to your effort. It responds to your expectation. And your expectation is born from belief, not from need. Most people are trying to get something they're not willing to mentally accept as already theirs. They pray for breakthroughs but think like victims. They speak of faith but dwell in fear. That internal contradiction blocks the flow. The power is not in what you say, it's in what you assume to be true, day in and day out. When you believe, truly believe, you become unshakable. Not because everything goes right, but because your identity is rooted in what is already finished. You are no longer moved by delays, detours, or disappointments. You don't interpret silence as rejection. You don't confuse waiting with denial. You don't panic when the evidence doesn't show up immediately, because you are not living from circumstances. You are living from conviction. You know what's yours. You've already received it in the Spirit. And because you've received it there, it must show up here. That is the law. What is accepted as true in consciousness will express itself in the outer world without fail. You are not just a body in the world. You are a spiritual being with creative authority. And the substance of your belief forms the framework of your reality. If you hold something as certain in your mind long enough, consistently enough, with enough feeling, the entire fabric of your life will rearrange to reflect it. Circumstances will shift, people will show up, doors will open, and coincidences will multiply, not because you forced it, but because you believed. The universe is always working to match your internal climate. The delay is never in the promise, it's in your perception. The question is never, will it happen? The real question is, have you truly accepted it as already done? You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need external validation. You don't even need confirmation signs. You just need to know. You just need to anchor yourself in the inner certainty that it is finished. And from that place of knowing, everything changes. Your energy shifts, your attitude shifts, your posture shifts. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop doubting and start resting. You stop striving and start flowing. When you walk in that kind of inner peace, people notice. They may not know what it is, but they feel it. They sense your confidence. They respect your calm. Because when you believe it's already done, you no longer carry the tension of trying to make it happen. You simply align with it and allow it to unfold. And don't be surprised if the moment you shift your belief, resistance shows up. Sometimes things seem to fall apart just before they come together. That's not a sign that your belief is wrong. It's a test to see if you'll remain rooted in what you've decided. The shaking is not to break you. It's to reveal whether your belief is emotional or foundational. Emotional belief fades when circumstances get tough. Foundational belief stands firm even in the dark. That's the kind of belief that moves mountains. That's the kind of belief that defies logic and changes outcomes. That's the kind of belief that brings the invisible into the visible. You must protect your belief like it's a seed. Don't share it with people who can't see it. Don't expose it to environments that crush dreams. Guard it. Water it. Speak life over it. Visualize it. Give thanks for it as though it already exists, because in truth it does. In the dimension that matters most, it is already complete. Your job is not to make it happen. Your job is to believe it's already happened, and then let your life rise to meet that belief. As long as you're looking for evidence to believe, you will remain in waiting. But if you dare to believe first, you will become the evidence others look to. And remember, belief is not a one-time event. It's a posture of the soul. It's a lens through which you view every challenge, every delay, every opportunity. You train your mind to stay in the state of the wish fulfilled. You discipline your thoughts to return to that place of certainty, even when your emotions waver. You remind yourself moment by moment that it is already done, that every detail is falling into place, that unseen forces are working behind the scenes, that your only responsibility is to stay aligned, stay grateful, and stay open. No matter what you feel right now, no matter how far away your dream seems, no matter what the facts say, none of that changes what you believe unless you let it. The facts may be real, but they are not final. Your current conditions are not your permanent truth. They are only temporary reflections of past beliefs. Change your belief, and you change the cause. And once the cause is altered, the effect must follow. That's not motivational fluff. That's spiritual law. You can't stay in a state of belief and not see the world around you begin to respond. It must respond. It's designed to. You were never waiting on the world to change. You were waiting to believe. And the moment you do, you'll realize it was already yours. So now, after all has been said, the truth remains undeniable. You are just one step away from everything you've ever longed for. But that step isn't out there. It's not in a place, a person, a job, or a lottery ticket. That step is within you. It's the step of belief. The decision to shift your thinking from hoping to knowing, from wishing to walking, from desiring to receiving. The greatest tragedy in life is not death. It's living beneath your potential, standing at the edge of promise and never entering in, because you refused to believe it was already yours. The distance between where you are and where you were destined to be is not measured in time or space. It's measured in mindset. You don't need more power, more favor, or more opportunity. You were already given everything when you were created. Heaven already authorized your destiny. You were sent to this earth with your future finished, your success encoded in your spirit, your dream wrapped in divine timing. The only thing left to do is to awaken to who you truly are, embrace what has already been settled in eternity, and walk in the full manifestation of it. Stop asking for permission. Stop waiting for confirmation. Stop standing at the door when the key is already in your hand. What's been promised to you is not coming. It's calling. And it's calling you to rise, to align, and to believe. The moment you do, everything changes. Because the truth is, you're not just close, you're one step away.